You have thoughts. You have opinions. You have things you want to say. But when the moment comes to speak, something stops you. Not because you don't know what to say, but because silence feels safer, easier, less risky, less likely to go wrong. So you stay quiet. You nod instead of disagree. You smile instead of explain. You swallow what you really think and let the moment pass. And no one knows the conversation happening inside your head. If this sounds familiar, stay with me, because your silence isn't random, and it makes more sense than you realize. Here's what most people don't understand about people who choose silence. It's not shyness. It's not having nothing to say. It's not a lack of intelligence or confidence. It's a learned response, somewhere along the way. You learned that speaking comes with a cost. Maybe your words were twisted. Maybe your opinions were dismissed. Maybe you said something honest and it was used against you. So you adapted. You learned to calculate before you speak, to weigh every word, to ask yourself, is this worth it? Is this safe? Will this be held against me? And most of the time, the answer was no. So silence became your default, not because you have nothing to say, but because you've learned that saying nothing is easier than being misunderstood. Here's where this often begins. Many people who find safety in silence grew up in environments where speaking was risky. Maybe your home was unpredictable. Maybe the wrong word could trigger anger. Maybe you learned to read the room before opening your mouth. Or maybe it wasn't dramatic at all. Maybe your thoughts were simply ignored, talked over, dismissed. Maybe every time you shared an idea, someone corrected you, interrupted you, made you feel stupid for speaking. So you stopped, not all at once, but slowly. You learned that your voice didn't matter, that speaking up led to pain, that the safest version of you was the quiet one. And that lesson followed you into adulthood. There's another layer here. Some people stay silent because they feel too much. When you're sensitive to how others receive you, speaking becomes exhausting. You don't just say words. You feel the reaction. You sense the judgment. You absorb the energy in the room. So you filter, you edit, you hold back. Not because you don't care, but because you care too much. The weight of being misunderstood is heavier for you than for most people, so silence becomes protection, a way to preserve your energy, a way to avoid the pain of not being heard. Here's something that might sound familiar. You rehearse conversations in your head before having them. You think of the perfect thing to say. After the moment has passed, you have entire opinions you've never shared with anyone. You watch others speak freely and wonder how they do it, how they don't overthink every word, how they don't replay conversations for hours afterward. And sometimes you wonder if something is wrong with you. There isn't. You've just learned to protect yourself in a world that didn't always make space for your voice. Here's what silence actually is. For most people, silence is just not talking. For you, silence is a strategy. It's self-protection. It's energy conservation. It's choosing peace over conflict. It's avoiding the exhaustion of being misunderstood. You're not quiet because you're empty. You're quiet because you're full of thoughts that feel too heavy, too complex, too likely to be misread. So you hold them in and carry them alone. Here's the cost of that silence. When you never speak, people assume you agree. They assume you have no opinion. They assume you're fine with everything. And slowly, you become invisible. Not because you're unimportant, but because no one sees what you never show. The relationships stay shallow. The connections stay surface. The real you stays hidden. And the loneliness grows. Because how can anyone know you if you never let them hear you? Here's the trap. Silence feels safe, and sometimes it is. But too much silence becomes a prison. You avoid rejection by never being seen. You avoid conflict by never being known. You protect yourself from pain by never being vulnerable. And one day you realize you've been so busy staying safe that you forgot to actually live. Here's what I want you to understand. Your silence makes sense. It's not weakness. It's not a flaw. It's not something broken in you. It's a response to experiences that taught you speaking was dangerous. But those experiences were then, and this is now. And maybe now, there are people who would actually hear you. Spaces where your voice would be welcomed. Moments where speaking would connect you instead of hurt you. Not everywhere. Not with everyone, but somewhere. With someone. The world doesn't need you to speak all the time. But it does need you to speak sometimes. Not for them. For you. Because your thoughts matter. Your opinions matter. Your voice matters, even if no one taught you that. Here's what helps. Start small. You don't need to share your deepest truths with everyone. You don't need to speak up in every room. Just notice the moments when you want to say something. And let yourself say it. One sentence, one opinion, one small truth, not to prove anything. Just to practice being heard and pay attention to who makes it easy. The people who listen without interrupting, who respond without judging, who make space for your words without making you regret them. Those are your people. They exist. And they're waiting to hear from you. So here's what I want you to know. If silence has always felt safer than speaking, you're not broken. You're someone who learned to protect yourself in a world that wasn't always kind to your voice. But protection and hiding are not the same thing. And you deserve to be heard, not by everyone, but by the people who matter. Your silence kept you safe, but your voice is what will set you free. Comment, I have things to say, because the quietest people often carry the deepest thoughts, and the world needs to hear them.